So 3 recent occurrences point to the difference in the way that progressives gain power versus conservatives. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So like many of you, I certainly celebrated when I heard the election results of this week, where in Wisconsin, Judge Janet Potasowicz won her election, defeating conservative former Supreme Court Justice Daniel Kelly in one of the most watched and expensive judicial races in the country. This race is critical because we've seen how ever since the 2010 election, the Republicans in Wisconsin have turned that state into a mirror image of authoritarian Hungary. In fact, some people have even referred to it as Hungary on the Great Lakes, a state where despite the fact that the state is narrowly divided and perhaps even slightly Democratic, with the Democrat winning the governor's office and Joe Biden having won the state, albeit by close margins, but yet with a legislature in which both bodies are controlled on a supermajority basis by Republicans as a result of gerrymandering. And that's not even to start talking about the congressional districts. Well, Judge Potasowicz has said that on the Supreme Court, she will be open to challenges to the gerrymandering that Republicans have engaged in. And what's more is she will be a strong voice against abortion bans. Something that's critical considering the fact that such a ban is about to come before the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. And if Kelly had won, the anti-choice forces probably would have won. Now, it's a whole different story. But I think it's telling that Potasowicz ran her campaign honestly. She clearly stated what her positions were on these issues. Did not back down or claim some kind of ridiculous, since I'm running for judicial office, I can't express my opinions. That's BS. And in fact, I wrote a law review article years ago talking about that problem. So I support the fact that she was upfront with the voters about where she stood. The result? She won by 11 points. 11 points in this narrowly divided state. That is a landslide. Obviously, the voters strongly supported her agenda against gerrymandering and standing up for abortion rights. The hope is that by this election now, she will be able to undo some of the corruption of the system of Wisconsin that was put in place by the Republicans when they were able to wrestle power for a brief period. In Chicago, we also saw Brandon Johnson win in an upset, defeating a conservative Republican in Democrats' clothing, showing that despite claims to the contrary, progressives can still win across America. So how do Democrats take control of the political agenda? They do so by winning elections because the majority of people support their agenda. Let's contrast that with what Republicans do. In North Carolina, a narrowly divided state to be sure, Republican-leaning, but yet a state that has elected a Democratic governor, Republican gerrymandering resulted in near supermajorities in both the House and the Senate, which if they had it, would have given Republicans the ability to override the vetoes of Democratic Governor Roy Cooper without any Democratic votes. In other words, Governor Cooper was able to veto the actions of the legislature, and as long as he held the Democrats together, he was able to stop the Republicans from acting on their own. The way they've been doing, by the way, in Wisconsin. Well, now it turns out that a Democratic legislator, Tricia Cotham, who is elected in a Democratic district with nearly 60% of the vote, has decided she's going to switch parties to the Republican Party. Just remember, the election was just a few months ago. You can't tell me that suddenly she's had a revelation and all of a sudden decide that she's going to change parties. No, she was another Republican running in Democratic clothing, trying to win in a district that she couldn't have won in as a Republican. And what does she do as soon as she gains power? She switches parties, and with that switch, she gives Republicans the veto-proof majority in the House that they were lacking. So now they're able to override Governor Roy Cooper's vetoes without any Democratic votes. You might say it seems like a fraud perpetrated on the voters. This is a district that never would have elected her if they'd known what she would have done. And you'd be right, and that's why many in North Carolina are calling for her to resign. You know, hey, if she wants to run again, let her run the special election as a Republican, which is what she is, and see how the voters treat her then. But instead, what she's going to do is simply hand the legislature to the Republicans, despite the fact that they couldn't win it at the ballot box. And then, in Tennessee, we see peaceful protests against efforts by the Republicans in the Tennessee legislature to loosen gun control after another mass shooting there. It was mostly high school students saying, hey, we don't want to be shot when we're going to school. But them simply standing up and saying that, not charging into any areas that they were not allowed to go into, not hurting any police officers, and going through all the usual security that's always there as a result of the fact that they disagreed with the Republicans trying to push through gun legislation after another mass shooting. The Republicans have characterized it as the equivalent of January 6th, something I find rich given the fact that they don't even acknowledge that January 6th was a riot, but that's a whole separate matter. And because of the fact that 3 Democratic legislators spoke in support of the protests, now those legislators are being expelled from the Tennessee legislature. Now let's just point something out here. Even if this was the equivalent of January 6th, which it wasn't, and again, all my documentation is going to be down below, even if it was, no members of Congress were expelled because of their involvement in January 6th. And as of right now, no elected official has faced charges for their involvement in January 6th. Although that may change in the near future. And yet here, we have something that was not January 6th, and yet legislators are being expelled, just going to show that once again, Republicans, when you give them power, they will abuse it. I'm so tired of hearing about this aggressive left trying to take over America. The fact of the matter is, most Americans don't support the Republican agenda. And they believe that, hey, we should all be able to get along. And the agenda of book burning and attacking transgender people is not something most of us want to stand with. That's why Democrats are winning. And the only way Republicans are able to stop it is by playing these unethical procedural games to try to keep themselves in power, despite the fact that the voters don't support them anymore. Well, if you want to see another video where I talk about the extent to which Republicans are coming after women and the LGBTQ community, check out this video over here. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.